Hello, mathematicians, puzzlers, and other curious people. Have you ever needed to compare two ratios, such as to find out whether you'd rather have 6 points out of 10 or 8 points out of 20? Here's how you can do that. So here I have a couple of pairs of ratios we can compare, and let's start with comparing 6 out of 10 to 8 out of 20. Now, one way we can do this is by using a common denominator. I notice that 20 is a multiple of 10, so I'm going to use 20 as my common denominator. So I see that the 8 doesn't need to change at all. So 6 out of 10 is the same as some amount out of 20. How do we find out what amount? Well, we've got 6 out of 10. So there's 6 out of 10 being filled in. And if we duplicate that group, well, then there would be 20. And I see that that is 12 out of 20. Now, one thing we can notice is that we multiplied to get that common denominator. So we can say, okay, even if this were larger numbers that would not be convenient to draw, we could still multiply. And then we'd say 6 times 2 is 12. Now, I notice that 12 out of 20 is more than 8 out of 20. So 6 out of 10 is also a greater ratio than 8 out of 20. Now I'm looking at 2/5 and 3/7. This one is a little bit trickier to find a common denominator for because neither of the denominators is a multiple of the other. So one way we can deal with that is to multiply the two denominators together. And sometimes there are also other ways. Any common denominator will work though. So one way you can always find a common denominator is any common multiple of the two denominators, and you can find one by multiplying them together. So out of 35, well, I had to multiply the 5 by 7 to get 35. So I have to multiply the 2 times 7. 2 times 7 is 14. Now I see that I had to multiply the 7 times 5 to get 35, so I also need to multiply the 3 times 5, and I get 15. So here in this case, 15 is more than 14, so 15/35 would be more than 14/35. So that means that 3/7 is a greater ratio than 2/5. 3 out of 7 is a greater proportion of a group than 2 out of 5 would be. So that's all there is to it. Just get that common denominator and then compare the numerators. Calculator!